everyone, and welcome to another episode of Passing with Barça. Normally, we're really happy recording this episode, because we're getting used to it, with the Flick era. We're just winning every single time. But this time, we're still going to be happy, but not as happy because 1-0 loss to Real Sociedad. That's the result that was in the Anoeta yesterday on Sunday. Yeah, today's Monday. You're probably hearing this on Tuesday, so you've had some time to recover. But we haven't. We only had one day. I'm going to talk about this and some key takeaways from this match, how it's going to affect the title race. And I'm not going to talk alone because I've got Ottavio right here. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Thank you for having me on, man. Yeah, to be fair, yesterday wasn't the best day ever, no, man. If we are honest, I mean, what can I tell you, man? At the end of the day, you cannot win every game, man. Even if there are ways of losing that makes you more disappointed and frustrated with the defeat, like for example today, yesterday. Sorry, but I mean, man, there are a lot of things to discuss, no, man. But I personally wouldn't still be like creating a big panic around the defeat, even if me personally I was very angry,
You're upset,
a
right?
lot of moments of the game. To be fair, man. I
Yeah.
mean, it is what it
I
is, man.
I think that's what we do best. No, not us in Barça Buzz, but in general, the Barça entorno, like they say, the
Yeah, yeah,
environment of the club.
yeah.
It's just,
The surroundings, no?
Flick lost, get
Yeah,
him off. No,
chaos and all
we
that,
can.
no?
Flick is. Yeah, but we're gonna try to give this other perspective. But
Calmness,
it's not gonna
the
be just
calm,
me and you.
put the
Yeah,
calmness
yeah, go ahead.
into the storm, no?
Yeah, absolutely. But I said it's not just gonna be me and you. We've got Oscar as well. How are you doing, my man? Good evening.
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Good evening to you lads as well. Needed a lot more
Thank
than
you, man.
24 hours to get over that last night, to be honest. As good as the season has been so far, I mean, not good, how unreal the season has been so far. There was always going to be a bump in the road, but I didn't think we'd lose many games or will lose many games as badly as we did last night. I mean, no shots on target. It was an absolute. It was so far removed from what we typically have seen from this Barca team under Hansi Flick. It was just the exact opposite. It was probably very similar to a Xavi game last season at its worst, really. And says we saw a lot of away games like this last season under Xavi. And yeah, it was kind of like a carbon copy, really. I think ultimately, okay, we're going to go to the goal we didn't get given. We're going to go back to that, I'm sure. But we could have lost by more goals last night. I think we actually got away with 1-0, to be honest. That's the most worrying thing, really. And yeah, very worrying game. But it's only one game. Position in the table, we'd have all took this back in August, most definitely. Going into the November international break, still being in front of Real Madrid, decent little cushion. So yeah, I'm not panicking too much, but yeah, it's a sobering one yesterday. It still shows there's still work to do for this team. There's still work to do in terms of the squad building in general. We're far from complete, and maybe it does show we are reliant on a certain few players in this Barca team, and I think we all know who those players are. But yeah, not panicking too much, but definitely annoyed about last night. No question about it. Probably the most annoyed of being watching Barca all season, really.
Absolutely, and you mentioned him. You didn't actually say the name, but Lamine Yamal. We all wanted him to start, and we thought, it's going to be another Lamine day where he's going to either assist or get a goal. But no, because 2 hours before the game started, pretty much, I think 2 hours, we saw the news that Lamine was not going to start, and the guy who came in was Fermin Lopez, who normally, as we all know, is a midfielder. And yesterday he played on the right wing, and I don't know what you guys thought, but when I saw the lineup. I thought, okay, Rafinha is probably going to go on the right, like he always used to play before this season, and maybe before Lamine actually started playing in the team as well. And Fermin Lopez is probably going to go on the left, but that's not what we saw. We saw Fermin on the right, even though he didn't just play on the right. He got inside all the time, which did create also this overload. But what did you? I wanted to ask you, Oscar. Did you see this lineup and said maybe we could have played with Ansu Fati on the left, Rafinha on the right? Or did you say, okay, Fermin Lopez, I trust him in the midfield, I'm going to trust him in the attack as well?
Yeah, it was strange. Just the whole setup was strange. When I saw Fabinho in the team, as well as Frenkie and Pedri and Casado, I very much expected, it to be Fabinho on the left and Rafinha on the right, kind of like recreating Lamine's role. I mean, Lamine is the best for me in the world at playing the role he's playing at this moment in time on that right hand side and holding the width and just being that constant 1v1 threat out wide, in terms of breaking teams, down in that kind of sense.
You're reminding me of You remember how Xavi said Dembele is the
Exactly.
he's the better
I think
position.
Dembele, though.
But with Yamal, it's closer to the truth than Dembele, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Dembele, it was maybe 5-6 times a season, and then another sort of 25, 30
Yeah.
games when he wasn't injured of Dembele literally running the ball out of play under zero pressure and forgetting, never mind not being good on his left foot or his right foot, just being rubbish at both, really. But that's enough of the Dembele slander. Any opportunity.
For Dembele, man.
I mean,
It's a good
right
time to
now,
mention
if you
that he
team
got
me up with
injured, I
Dembele
think,
slander, I'm
yesterday.
going to take it.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that he did get injured, I think, yesterday, so he's not gonna be play on the international break. But that's all. That we're not gonna talk about Nivelle any longer, so you guys can stay calm.
Imagine
But
if he was at the club, still, how much lag we were going to put in him, man.
yeah, and I
It's,
think people are forgetting. I think people are forgetting that like had Dembele stayed, I don't know if we would have seen so much from Lamine Yamal, but that's
very
something we're
true.
gonna discuss in another podcast.
It's
uh,
yeah, it's a
but
discussion for that's a different discussion. It's a different discussion, but it is very true. In terms of it was like an opportunity for us in terms of Dembele leaving. So, but although I am bitter still about that, and I think all Barca fans are still bitter about that, and rightly so, it's kind of worked out pretty well for us in the end. But in terms of yesterday, Rafinha is at his best not playing the Yamal role. He's at his best being on the end of what Yamal's creativity is. He's the one who produces the output. He's the one who gets the numbers for us in terms of goals and assists. And I felt yesterday, Rafinha, and it'll sound like a weird thing to say, he had too much on-ball responsibility almost. He's not a player you want touching the ball 100 times in a game. You want him to be running in behind, making the runs to stretch Real Sociedad, make it more awkward for Real Sociedad to press man-to-man, give him that threat in behind. And it felt like Rafinha's role yesterday was kind of like a bit of a confused role kind of thing. I don't think Rafinha ever felt comfortable in what he was being asked to do. He was on the left-hand side. Firmino was on the right-hand side. And it just didn't look right on paper. And on the pitch, it looked even worse, to be honest. And I think we've already kind of said, I expected after sort of 10, 15 minutes, they'll swap wings. It'll be Rafinha onto the right, Firmino on the left. We saw that at times last season. Firmino did play from time to time off the left. And it was kind of like almost Xavi-esque in terms of that having like the box midfield and Rafinha keeping the width on the other side. But that never came to fruition. It just looked a mess, to be honest. It looked a complete and utter mess. I think at times in the game, you saw our wing threat was Jules Koundé on the right-hand side. And listen, I absolutely love Jules, by the way. I think he's unbelievable in terms of what he brings to this team, in terms of how well he's adapted from being a centre-back to a right-back so seamlessly. But he is not at his best being asked to hold the width and play as a winger. His strength is defensively, and in terms of build-up play, it's not final third transgression. I know he got the hat-trick of assists against Red Star, but again, one game doesn't make me think all of a sudden Jules Koundé is Trent Alexander-Arnold in an attacking sense. He isn't that type of player, and that's what we're kind of playing him as yesterday, and that was kind of the frustration for me in terms of. It had Rafinha being on that right-hand side from the off. It would have kind of helped things out a little bit. But ultimately, I think the top and bottom of it is any team's going to miss Lamine Yamal. Yeah, we can't get away from that. Any team will miss Lamine Yamal. But we are a little bit too reliant on him in certain aspects in terms of, not even so much in terms of team performance, just in terms of the lack of out-and-out depth we've got to Lamine Yamal in terms of when Yamal doesn't play. Say for example for Spain, you look at Spain's winger options. If Lamine Yamal isn't in the team, they've still got Nico Williams on the left-hand side or right-hand side to sort of be the 1v1 dribbler. Of course, he doesn't do it to anywhere near the same level as Lamine Yamal, but he's still got the same profile on the pitch. So it's not having to change your whole style of play for one player kind of thing. And that's what we kind of saw yesterday. And there's other positions as well where you kind of say when Alejandro Balde's not on the pitch, it looks messy on the left-hand side because Gerard Martin is not able to recreate the same kind of threat as what Alejandro Balde does. So it's definitely across the team. I think it did show more than anything yesterday that the depth is an issue. But I do have to criticise Hansi as much as there have been. I think he's done a phenomenal job so far. Unbelievable job so far. But we also have to criticise when things don't go well. And yesterday, not only did he not get the starting 11 right, the substitutions were timed badly, with the wrong subs, and you still had the same situation. So even when Dani Olmo came on, I thought, okay, at least when Dani Olmo comes on, he's going to go to the left-hand side, sort of be as a sort of in between a left winger and a number 10 and kind of overloads from that side, and Rafinha on the right, and Firmino playing in a more natural role. But that never came to fruition. It was the same again. Dani Olmo in the 10, Firmino still on the right, Rafinha still on the left, and it only actually changed when we made that last sub instead of taking Firmino off and putting Ansu Fati on. And I think ultimately, when you look at this Barca team throughout the season, in the wide areas up to yesterday, we've always had pace and natural wingers on the wings. Last season and the season before that, we saw Xavi try João Felix and Pedri and Gavi and Firmino at times, and it never quite works really. And yesterday rather, we tried the same thing again. We kind of went totally against the philosophy of having pace and power on the wings to kind of catch teams in behind and sort of assist the vertical style of play, because it's all well and good having the vertical style of play, but if you don't have the runs to get on the end of the through balls and the direct sort of passes, it's totally useless and it looks messy. And that's what we saw yesterday. Yeah, we saw this with Flick's Germany in terms of not having the right profiles and how much it kind of limits Flick's style of football. But when Flick does have the right profiles on the pitch, we have proven how good a team we are. So I think the issue we've got this season is, in terms of depth, we'll either be 9 or 10 out of 10 or 4 or 5 out of 10. I don't think we're going to have many games where we're just a 7, nice and comfortable, nice and smooth win.
Yeah.
Nothing too dramatic. I just don't think that's going to be the type of team we're going to be. It's going to be a roller coaster season for us. And I think we'll have a lot more 9 and 10 out of 10 days, but there's also going to be more 4 or 5 out of 10 days where we do try and rotate things. Or I think there's a bit of fatigue as well yesterday. I really do. I think there was, in terms of the pressing. Casado, I think, was showing signs of fatigue as well. Pedri to an extent. Rafinha even, I thought, was showing sort of signs of fatigue as well. So that's something to... So there's a lot of different mitigating factors. I think ultimately it isn't just one thing that's led to what happened yesterday. It's just a combination of things. But ultimately it's like the perfect cocktail of a pretty poor performance yesterday.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we've always seen, like maybe in the last, 3-4 years. We have a nice starting lineup, but once a few players get injured, and that always happens in Barca, and now with Madrid as well, it's happening for them. Like, you don't get the same quality. It's not like Manchester City, Kevin De Bruyne gets injured. All right, we've got to Phil Foden. No, we're not going to get this depth, especially not when we don't have the money to get this kind of depth. But I want to take you guys to the 13th minute, actually, because the game starts, and we all know that Anoeta in San Sebastian, it's one of the hardest stadiums in Spain. And last year, we won 1-0 thanks to a late winner of Araujo. That was almost offside, by the way. It's nice to remember.
It was on the limit, yeah.
But it was such an intense game. And I tweeted, actually, during this match, I think at halftime, I said that for me, playing in Anoeta in the last, 2 years, maybe more, it's harder than the Bernabeu. The atmosphere, the intensity in which Real Sociedad plays with this is incredible. And yet we get to the 13th minute and Lewandowski scores. And I don't know what you guys think, but I'm going to ask you like this, because we've all seen the pictures on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. Do you think there's a chance that that it is offside? Because we all know why it's probably not an offside, or maybe you guys are going to disagree, because we've seen the photos of Lewandowski. Like he's maybe his shoe is, I don't know, the size is 59. But do you think there's a chance that it is offside, or is it like, is there no way? Otavio, what do you think?
I mean, man, as you said, no, with the image that we saw, at least that I have seen, maybe there might have been another image in there that shows something different, man. But with the image that I have seen personally, there is no reason to believe that it is offside, in the sense that I think he is in the line, like in the same line as the defender of Real Sociedad that I don't really remember who was at the moment. I think it was the number 21.
Yeah, I think it was Agerd, but I'm probably butchering
no?
this name because I can't pronounce this well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't remember, but it looks like he was like in the same line, in the same size, the shoulder behind the line of the ball,
Everything.
the feet, everything, and the most awkward thing, man, is that I don't know, man, the league VAR or something like that, they wanted to try to show that the feet that was ahead was the level one, but if you look in the image, it clearly isn't like that. That is like probably you guys saw, no? The Rafinha posted a story, you know, in look, exactly that. I know the name of the character, man, but with the shoes that the
Yeah,
feet
the
like
shoes
bigger than
like
all of
size,
us, probably.
I don't know, 60. Yeah.
Size 80 probably. Nah, but yeah, man, I think there's personally no me personally there's no reason to believe that it is or it was no offside. But just to give a little bit a little comment in the game as well, I personally don't think that is the reason that the Barca lost. To be fair, of course,
Yeah.
if you as you were saying, you know, in terms of the atmosphere in and weather all that, if you started with the 1-0, probably the game would have been a whole different
Yeah, that's a
scenario,
point that I
no?
wanted to point out, that anyone that's played football or been into football for a long time, you guys know, if you start a game and you score early on, the game is different. If you play against Getafe, for example, you score early on, it's not going to be the same. They're going to have to come out and attack. And Real Sociedad, it's not like they were parking the bus, you know. But either way, the game is so different in terms of confidence, in terms of the dynamics, because the team has to press you and do all that stuff. And it's so different that when, you know, this goal is ruled out. And I saw, like, I can't remember when it was. I read somewhere that I think it was the Athletic that gave the stat that teams tend to score more after a goal is ruled out against them. So, for example, if I'm Barca and you score against me and the goal is ruled out, I'm going to have extra motivation. It's like, whoa, this is for real. Like, I've got to score now. And I think that's exactly what happened with Real Sociedad. It took 20 minutes. But yeah, as you said, this is not an excuse. Like, we played really bad. We didn't even find the target, and it's the first time that we do so since 2014 against Malaga. That was the last time I saw that we didn't find the target. But do you think that it would have changed the game? Like, say we scored, do you see us winning this game? Even though, like, I think if we would have kept playing like this, the answer is no, because Real Sociedad, let's be honest, we could have scored 3, like, no problem. But do you think it would have changed the dynamics? Because I surely do think so. Otavio, what do you think?
Yeah, no, that is exactly that, man. Because for me, even before the goal, I was already having like bad feelings. As Oscar was saying, like since the start of the game, it felt strange, man. It felt like a game that everything that could have gone wrong had gone wrong, even since before the game, man. Because as you said, no, when we saw the lineup, when we saw before, no, the Lamine would have
Lamine Yamal is
been
injured.
wouldn't be in the game. That was already like a big point. Don't know if it's exactly the the main thing that made Barca loss. Don't think so personally, but of course it has conditioned a lot. So I mean, man, probably the game would have been different. At least maybe I think Barca probably would have a little bit more control of the game. Would have had more space as well, because probably Real Sociedad would start to press and probably behind there would be more spaces. But yeah, man, I mean, it was a bad game overall, man. And I mean, man, what Oscar said in terms of the position of Rafinha and Fermin, I also thought, man, when I saw the lineup, Fermin is going to be on the left and Rafinha is going to be in the right, and at least we'll be able to have, for example, a Fermin Balde connection in the left, because Fermin probably would have come into to the midfield, and in the right wing you have Rafinha taking on like the width, no, the width in the right. But that unfortunately didn't happen, and I didn't really understood, man, because for me was in the right, but then Pedro was like the right. It was like the right side of the team was kind of inexistent. You know, there was a lot of players in there, but nothing really happened. You know, so just to conclude, man, yeah, I think probably it would have changed the game, but I still think probably I don't know if Barca would have lost it, but I think that it was a game since minute 1 until minute 93, 94, destined for Barca to make a better game, you know, with all of the things that happened in terms of of lineup, in terms of player selections, in terms of player performances. That me personally, I can't really tell one player that did a decent game. Probably Iñaki, because he saved one ball in the second half, but Kubarsi had a solid game as well, to be fair with him. But other than that, not that much, man. If I'm completely honest with you guys.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And Oscar, I want to ask you this as well. Do you think the goal should have still like? Do you think there's a chance that like I genuinely think that I don't know what's obviously I've never used this system, right? Like I'm not sitting in the VAR room, and we have to remember, by the way, that it's not the referee's fault because many people are blaming the referee. The referee has nothing to do. Like he can't know whether it's offside or not. He doesn't have the view to decide. But what do you think about this? Is it offside or is it like did we get a completely wrong image?
I think it's definitely onside, to be honest. I think it's quite, I'd say it's 75-25 onside. Obviously, it's always difficult when there's not multiple images. I think we've only really seen one or two angles rather than three or four. So, of course, if you see it from the other side, in terms of from Lewandowski's side rather than Agüero's side, then you maybe have a different narrative on it, possibly. And that might be why it's been given offside. But for the images we've had from the reports since, in terms of the fact Hansi Flick has made such a point about it, I mean, we know how rare it is for Hansi Flick to say anything about a referee. And says, in fact, he said all season really he doesn't want players protesting decisions. He doesn't want the team wasting energy in that kind of sense. And quite the opposite of, say, a Xavi, for example, or a Pep, in terms of where quite often be getting into quite a bit of trouble. Yeah, certainly Xavi on that side of things, or even a Luis Enrique, for example. Hansi Flick's been quite the opposite to that, really. Very, very rarely see that. And it was definitely something that was bothering Hansi Flick. And for me, I think it probably is onside. And I think there's probably there's more to it than just being a refereeing error. I just think these errors now, we've seen them so often now against Barca. I think you know what angle I'm going to go with this on. Octavio, I can see.
I can imagine.
As we said, we don't see these decisions go against Real Madrid. We see these decisions go against Barcelona. I think it's not unheard of for La Liga to try and make this title race interesting. And all of a sudden, Barca lost 3 points to Real Madrid. Real Madrid had to win their game in the hand, only 3 points behind. And the reality is, listen, just to say, we weren't good enough yesterday. I have no complaints, even if the goal had been given. There's still a possibility we go on to lose that game 2-1. I don't think we would have done. I think we would have found a way to at least get a result.
Maybe at least a draw, no?
Yeah, I just don't feel the Hansi Flick team would have totally 1-0 up. But we've seen it this season before where we've had iffy starts to games. Villarreal, for example, we had an iffy sort of first 20-25 minutes, and then as soon as we scored, Villarreal had to sort of change their system a little bit, and that's probably what would have happened. But I do feel like, listen, I'm not saying it's just because of that the goal didn't get given, but I do feel we see too many of these decisions go against ourselves and not so much against Real Madrid. It's quite the opposite, in terms of I do have that feeling about it, and it is what it is in that kind of regard. I'm not going to go too much into that, but I don't know. Do you lads agree? I just think it happens too often now for it not to be something in this in terms of refereeing. I mean, even last season, I'll go look back to that Getafe game that you mentioned, Tal. That penalty that wasn't given. It's things like this. It's
that was a strong one.
I think what I think is obviously, like for example, yesterday, I don't think it was an intentional error. I think that it's too hard. Like for example, it's different when it's a referee mistake. But yesterday, like they know the whole world is going to be looking at this. I think they genuinely aren't doing their job well. Like I think they genuinely do not know how to use this system well enough because usually it's easy, you've got some distance between the two players, but they just go, let's just click this, let's click that, and then you get this result. And you just need to look at this for, I don't know, 30 seconds to realize that this is wrong. But I think it was just too easy for them to go, go on, that's fine, offside. And but yeah, I do relate to what you say that with the refereeing mistakes. This one I don't count this in because I think it's genuinely they made a mistake themselves. But the mistakes are usually that's what I think, and obviously I'm not objective, but they lean towards Real Madrid, and I don't think it was the case yesterday. I think yesterday they generally made a mistake, but many times it does happen. Obviously, we can't know whether we would have gone on to win this game because you never know. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help when you roll out this goal, and I think it was Lewandowski probably 20th goal this season in all competitions, which is amazing. We're only in November. But I don't know what you guys think, but like it feels like we're a lot ahead, like we're much ahead of Real Madrid. It feels like Real Madrid are like, I don't know, I don't want to say 10 points because it's only November, but it feels like Real Madrid are really struggling and we are having the best season that we have in a long time. Obviously, so far we're only in November, but if Real Madrid goes on to win the next game, it's only going to be 3 points. And I think it's crazy that we feel like on the top of the world, and it's only 3 points if they win. And I
Without
do
Mbappe
think
scoring as
this,
well, just to add, this is with Mbappe in. Mbappe's form will, for me, won't continue to be this bad. It will eventually click. Or as much as I hate to say it, he will eventually click into gear. I do think.
yeah, I agree. And as you say, he's only had 5 goals without the penalties. Penalties do count, but
There
and
are
they do
goals,
get
no?
many of them. To be fair to them, but yeah, I think the fact that it's 3 points of this, obviously it's 6 points right now because they haven't played against Valencia. But the fact that it's 3 points is like we need to be careful because if at the best time of our lives at our club, uh, it's only 3 points and they're obviously struggling. Let's see, because things change. Let's see in May when Real Madrid maybe are pushing for everything. We don't know, I don't know if Ancelotti is going to be there, but things change really quickly. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in, like, as you say, when Real Madrid click, because now we've got the international breaks and maybe it's improved in the last few international breaks, but we tend to come back from them like not the same team. Do you know what I mean? And that the next game is against Celta Vigo, and we're gonna see who's gonna come back, right? Because we've got Lamine Yamal who should be back, and Lewandowski as well who got injured. But I wanted to ask you also, Otavio, do you think that we've come too dependent on this 17-year-old who's called Lamine Yamal? Like this guy genuinely, I don't know, when we won the Champions League, how like he was what 11? This is crazy. Like I'm young myself, but this is next
He's
level. Do
younger
you
than that.
think
Younger
that
than
we've
that,
become
mate.
Yeah, it's what
He'd be
ah,
7, 8.
2000
no?
2000 what
Well, it's
2006, no? He's
2007, right?
7. He's
Seven.
yeah,
Yes,
7
We
no.
7
So
last
he was eight.
2015.
He
We
was
last
eight.
won.
Yeah, because my brother
Yeah.
is 16 and he's from 2008. So yeah, so he's 2000. Lamine's
Yeah.
2007.
No. So I take it back, but I still like it's even crazier.
Even
Nah, it's crazy.
younger.
It's crazy. Nah, it's absolutely crazy.
I know that's crazy. So do you think that we've become too dependent? And by the way, it's quite familiar now to be dependent on a right wing that is going to just dribble past everyone in score. What's your take about this?
I mean, man, I don't know if dependence is the right word because I think a lot of this season, especially, a lot of players were being very important. I think that the whole team was being like the main reason for the success, but I do think that he was or he is no definitely the most influential player in the team, and probably together with Pedro, I would say that there are the two players that if you take off of the team are the players that you feel the most, the absence. And I think yesterday that it was clear, not only because of the quality that in this case Lamine has. We know that he's an absolutely incredible talent, but I think, man, the rest of the team and the rest of the players already know that he's like that inflation in the team,
He's
and you
dangerous.
see exactly, man, and the rest of the team always looks for him, always tries to build the place with Lamine being that important, man. So when you don't have that player, you feel, well, of course, not going to be comparing the players, but when we had Messi, for example, that happened, that the team knew, the players around knew how important he was, that they always tended to look for him in the place. And with Lamine, I think that is what happens, is that the team knows, the other players knows how important he is, that when he isn't, I think the team feels his absence, and that for me is like the problem that we have seen that yesterday's match. What happens when you don't have, for example, Lamine, man? What do you do? What we try to how do you try to find a solution with the team? And at least yesterday we didn't. And if you ask me, now I personally don't really see how we can like replace him, or replace, of course, is difficult, but find a way to keep the same level, without I mean, I think that is the biggest problem. I think that is what Oscar was saying that in the start as well. How not having Lamine can makes things worse, man. But let's hope. And I think the good thing, man, is that it has happened now, right before international break, man. So he doesn't go with Spain, and he has these 2 weeks to recover with the club, man. I think that is the biggest thing. Of course, I'll hope and believe, that he's going to be in the game against Celta. But if he doesn't, and in the next 2-3 months I think it's not that big of a deal. I think that probably would be like if you lose him for a month, for example, that would be disaster. But just to complete, man, I think not that Barca is dependent on him, but definitely he is one of the players, top two, probably top one of players that most the player that most influences this team. And when he's not at the pitch, you definitely feel his absence, no?
Yeah, and I think because when he gets the ball, not only that he normally passes it to Lewandowski, right? Lewandowski has had many chances thanks to some outrageous Lamine passes, but also that the defenders come out, and try to defend, and that means that maybe Rafinha is free, Lewandowski, but it's not the same when we've got Fermin on the right who actually goes inside. Obviously, it's not the same. But what do you think about this, Oscar? Do you think obviously it's not going to be the same thing, right? Like it's not Messi, it's not the same level, and I think also Messi in his last year, it wasn't Rafinha and Lewandowski on the best forms. He was Brightweight and Griezmann. But do you think that we have become too dependent on this 17-year-old?
Yeah, and I think that's natural. When you've got a player, a generational talent, and I don't use that word lightly, I think he's one of very, very, very few generational talents in this current sort of generation of players. It's natural he's going to become the main man. I think you could say the same about Spain in terms of, was Spain over-reliant on Lamine Yamal at the last Euros? Definitely, there's no question about it. They probably were. But when you've got a player who's this good, it's natural. You're going to want to run everything through him in the build-up and the attack. He is the person who comes up with the solutions. Yes, Lewandowski and Rafinha probably will get more goals and assists in the short term, but in the medium to long term, Lamine is a player who can, step up to sort of 25 goals a season and 25 assists a season, and sort of, not hit Messi numbers because that's unrealistic. But who knows? He's still got a massive ceiling to aim for. But in terms of when you look at Lamine, he's only going to get better, and Barca, in that sense, are only going to become more reliant on him. What I do think, it doesn't have to be an issue for us in terms of becoming reliant on Lamine, because if you look at Spain, for example, I keep going back to Spain, but they have Nico Williams in the team who can do. Obviously, he's playing on a different side. He's a slightly different profile of player, a little bit more about sort of speed and power than what Lamine is in that kind of sense. A bit more of a natural runner in behind, but he still offers a lot of the similar characteristics in terms of that ability 1v1 to break a low block, in terms of to get past the fullback and then shift the whole defensive line across and then free someone up on the other side. How many times do we see at the Euros, Lamine beat his man, and then Nico Williams free on the back post. In fact, in the Euros, the first goal came from that, exactly that scenario in terms of having that free option on the other side. And I think Barca, to be at their best, always need that on the pitch. But it doesn't just have to be Lamine. And I think when you look at this season in general, and we've said it before, even before the season started, January, it says the transfer window could still be big for Barca. If we do get to 1-1 because of this night deal and other factors and other economic factors and being able to sell players to, in terms of really help us further, then there is a case to make a decent sized signing in January in terms of just to have a backup in that front three or front four. Because if you look at it, Dani Olmo, as much as I love Dani Olmo, is injury prone. We are going to have periods of the season, possibly, who knows, the most important periods of the season without Dani Olmo. Robert Lewandowski is 36 years of age. Of course, he's had an excellent season. He's getting better with age, like a fine wine. But 36, you've still got to be looking more towards the long term. Lamine is 17. Opposite to Lewandowski, you don't want to overplay Lamine for different reasons, totally different reasons to Lewandowski, but still, you don't want Lamine to become the Ansu Fati or, to an extent, the Pedri in terms of having relentless injury problems because he's being overplayed at such a young age. So there is a case for saying, obviously, we've seen all week Rafa Leao being kind of mentioned. And listen, I don't put him in a position in January to sign a Rafa Leao, but could be in a position to sign a Nico Williams, for example, at a cut price. There's all sorts of different factors to look at. And if we can't do it in January, we can't do it in January. But I do think this Barca team does need another option in the front four, because if we go back to Messi, Suarez, Neymar, it says as a whole team, it worked best when Pedro was the fourth option because he could be a backup to Messi as a right winger, he could be a backup to Suarez as a striker, and he could be a backup to Neymar as a left winger. So, it's one of those. It's almost like if I could pick one realistic player, it would be like to have another Pedro kind of thing. Someone who can just go in, isn't going
Ferran
to
Torres, right?
bring him in back now. I mean, he's still banging the goals in now at 37. I mean, he can be competition for Robert Lewandowski. You can make Robert Lewandowski feel less old, kind of thing, if you bring in Pedro now. But it's one of those. We just need another option who is going to ensure that if they are injured, the standards stay high. And the reason I'll stay on Pedro as a topic is that we saw Messi, Suarez, Neymar, although the numbers got better and better and better by season, the actual success diminished. In terms of 2015-16, we could have easily won the treble that season as well. But unfortunately, fatigue kicks in. We didn't have the backups to Messi, Suarez, and Neymar because Pedro had gone to Chelsea at that point. 2016-17, we thought Arda Turan was like the solution to the Pedro problem. He wasn't. So again, fatigue kicks in that season. Neymar started to have issues with injury. Suarez started to sort of decline at that point in terms of that last season when the MSN was together. And ultimately, the results diminished. And, it wasn't a case of Barca were loads better in 2014-15 than they were in 2015-17. It's just they didn't have the depth. And this Barca team, if we can get 95% of the games out of our strongest 11, we'll be probably in strong contention to win the league, strong contention to win any of the trophies. But the reality is we won't get 95% of the season. In fact, we're being quite lucky, really, that players like, say, Inigo, Pedri, traditionally have been quite injury-prone players. Touch wood, we've been able to get relentless games out of them. They've had to play a lot of football kind of thing. So we've actually got lucky in some ways as well with Balde as well. By the way, Balde has come back from a massive injury and is all of a sudden having to play every single week. And so there's definitely this project. I think the overall point I was trying to make is that this project is far from finished. If we finish this season with a trophy, it's been an exceptionally successful season considering how far back we were in the summer. So we have to still remember that we have come a long, long way in the space of 3 months. And, the idea that in 3 months' time, in the space of 3 months, that we don't all of a sudden don't have these problems that we had last season in terms of depth and injuries and things like this. And, young players as well, they're going to be naturally inconsistent from time to time. Pau Kubasi is phenomenal, by the way. He's absolutely phenomenal, but he's not going to be 9, 10 out of 10 every single week just yet. In terms of Alejandro Balde, it's the same kind of case. Pedri is getting more and more consistent in terms of, I think he's been our best player this season, as I've already said. But we have to remember these things. It is going to be an awkward season at times, and we are going to have, bumps in the road, like Sociedad away. And, it's not just Sociedad in terms of there's, Bilbao away. It's a very, very tough game. I think we've got the last game of the season. that is one where I think, if we need to win that to win the league, that is not a game. I don't think I can watch. I don't think I can watch the game because Nico Williams, the script and all that lot already writes itself, doesn't it? Really, Ernesto Valverde as well. The script. Oh God, no, that the thought of that actually is.
Who knows who's going to be there at this point? Maybe Messi is going to be there as well. It's going to be too chaotic.
Yeah, it scares me, actually. It scares me. Ernesto Valverde has been around for enough Barca capitulations. That would, if he masterminded one, that would be the kick in the teeth. But I don't know if I'm making sense, lads. I just think ultimately the issue is we just haven't got the depth. And I don't think it's a case of Hansi Flick has become a bad manager overnight or anything like that. And, it's anything tactical. I just think it is a case of any team where you're so reliant on your starters, it's an issue, and that wouldn't change if we had a different manager or anything like this, or or different tactics. It'd still be the same scenario. We just ultimately have to be realistic about where this Barca team is at. It's still a long way from being at its peak. This Barca team.
Absolutely, and I think you were mentioning signing players as well. Maybe in January, maybe in the summer. We don't know yet. But we do need to talk about this as well. We finally have the Nike agreement. It's become a big thing in Barca. We've started celebrating sponsorship agreements. And I want to give you some numbers. So Barca is expected to receive approximately 140 million per season. I'm talking euros, obviously. From Nike, the total value is projected to reach 1.7 billion euros, which is absolutely crazy. It is also the most lucrative kids sponsorship in football history. And the question is, firstly, like almost every Barca fan knows by now, do we get back to one to one, which means every euro that we get, we can spend, and we don't have, for example, 1 to 3 that every 3 euros that you get, you can only spend one. So that's the question. I don't know, obviously, because of I'm not economy is not my thing, but that's a question. We've also got asked some questions that we're gonna get to down the road, but I don't know if it's gonna be one by one. But do you guys think that we're gonna be able to make any signing in January? Because we have to say, like, I think I've already mentioned in the last podcast or the one before that once Rafinha or Lewandowski or Lamine Yamal get injured, we've got no replacements. As we saw yesterday, Fermin Lopez, with all due respect, is a great player, but he's a midfielder and he's not an attacker. Do you guys think they're going to be able to make a signing in January? Ottavio, what do you think about this? And do we even need to make a signing?
I mean, man, I'm same as you, man. I don't really know the numbers thing. If he allows us to get to the 1-on-1, I don't really know, because it's a topic, man, that has came out so many times, man. And one time is one thing, another time is other, that my mind kind of boggles with this thing, man. But of course, in terms of like fan perspective and try to be positive, I would hope so, man. And I think it was good to get this done, and because it's been I don't know what 5-6 months since we have been more probably that we have been with this Nike deal, man, and finally to get done officially, confirmed, is a great news, man. In terms of the signing, man, when the season started, probably the first month more that, and seeing how the team was going, I was kind of satisfied, and I personally thought, like, at least for this first half of the season, the team was good, and I wasn't even thinking about signing all of that. But to be fair, man, not only about the game, the yesterday game, but to be fair, it has to do it. I agree with Oscar, and probably you think the same, not all. That I think at least one body, man. Well, probably two, probably would be difficult, but probably one body in the attack, man, I think would be ideal. I don't really know. I think probably a right winger, man, because at the left, at least you have an Ansu Fati, a Ferran, even if the level of these guys, we know that probably isn't the level that you would like to for a Barca player, but at least you have those guys. No, in the right, I think is a more of a complicated situation. But the thing is, what player do you sign? You have to look at the market and see what is available. But I think, man, at least one body in the attack would be good, at least to give now and then a rest to Alamin, to Aleva, to Rafinha. Well, a player that could play all of these positions probably would be the dream. Of course, not easy to find, but yeah, man. If it allows, I personally would like, because for example in the midfield you have already a full stack midfield with 6-7 options. All of them can play basically in well, not all positions, but you have the cover out in the defense. When Araujo increases and comes back, I would be probably confident with the defense as well. And the fullbacks, of course, you are fully reliant of Balde and Kude, but until they are there, it's okay. But I think that the attack there is more like a difference, no, between very very clear difference between the starters and the players that are on the bench. So yeah, man, if there is the possibility, would be nice. Though at the moment, don't really know which player, and don't really could probably throw a name, but as I don't have the name in my mind, I'm not going to say nothing. But yeah, answering your question, I think would be good, and probably will. I think that the team needs at least one player more in the attack, man, for sure.
Yeah, I want to ask you, Oscar, your opinion as well, because we were talking about the right back position, and let's be honest, Koundé has been exceptional this season defensively more than anything, because he did have, as you said, 3 assists in the Champions League game, but still, it's not his thing. Like Koundé is more of a defender, and if we look at this, we haven't had a proper right back for a long time now, because Koundé, he's a centre back. I know he's doing an amazing job at the right back, and he's probably going to keep doing so for many years. But his natural position was center back, and Cancelo was there for 1 year, so we didn't actually own Cancelo, if you know what I mean. So do you think we should make a signing at this position or in any other position? Because for me, that the most concerning thing, let's say, is the attack. But what's your take on this?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I'm personally a big fan of Hector Fort. And maybe I'm not in such a good position to criticise this because I made the mistake earlier on when I was talking to Tal about this. I didn't actually even realise that Hector Fort wasn't actually on the bench. So I was shouting at the TV, let's get Hector Fort on for a more attacking-minded fullback. And I didn't realise he wasn't on the pitch. So I was literally the Simpsons meme, angry old man shouting at the clouds. That was literally me yesterday in terms of on Hector Fort not coming on. But I personally think Hector Fort is good backup for Jules Koundé. If, of course, a better right back is available and the market is reasonable in terms of it's not crazy price, then yeah, by all means, it's something to look at. And Jules Koundé is also a very good centre back. Let's not forget that at all. We can also play a very important role at centre back, and it's one of those. But I actually look more at the left back situation for Alejandro Balde as backup. I personally think Hector Fort is good backup. But having said that, if Hansi Flick doesn't fully trust Hector Fort, which maybe there's an element of that because Hector Fort hasn't played many minutes this season. He hasn't really looked to Hector Fort when we've been chasing the game. Look back to say maybe the Monaco away game. The Osasuna game, he waited till very late on in that game when the game was already gone to put on Hector Fort as a more attack-minded fullback. And that, to me, is quite a weird one, really, with Hector Fort. And even you look at, say, when Balde's being rested, he's prepared to play Gerard Martin rather than Hector Fort at left-back. And that, to me, really confuses me because not only is Gerard Martin not a natural overlapper, he's also not as good as Hector Fort, even though Hector Fort's playing out of position. It just doesn't really make sense to me why that happens. So it's clear to me that Hansi Flick isn't fully happy with those fullback options. I think he's happy with Jules Koundé and Balde as first choices. I don't think he'd swap them. I think it's more the backups to them. He's not satisfied enough to be willing to rest Koundé and Balde on a regular basis. And that is definitely puzzling. So not puzzling, but it's definitely an issue for us. So I definitely look at left back more. Because I think Koundé at this moment in time is playing better than Balde is. I think he's more complete all round as a fullback. I think Balde is a great talent, but I think there's still maybe a case for having a bit more competition, maybe a bit of a older fullback who can play on a left back kind of thing and cover. But what I would say to all of this is that if Barca were able to sign a Nico Williams or a Rafa Leao, on that left hand side, and all of a sudden have a scenario where you can have Lamine Yamal on the right, Rafa Leao or Nico Williams on the left, and maybe Rafinha or Dani Olmo through the middle, you actually don't necessarily need an overlapping left back in that scenario. You can have an inverted fullback. You maybe play Inigo Martinez out as kind of a left back, and it kind of converts into a left-sided back three kind of role for Inigo Martinez, if that makes sense. We kind of see this with Man City and Arsenal in terms of, it's quite a modern thing in terms of inverting the fullbacks, and that's another option as well. I think Balde is so important at left back because he keeps the width on that side. He allows Rafinha to come inside and make sure the width is still there, even though Rafinha is further inside because Balde is out there. But if you had a Leao or Nico Williams, they can keep the width on that side, and it could be kind of like a different dynamic on the left-hand side. I still think, as good as it has been, Balde and Rafinha, it can still be improved on further in terms of the dynamics of that attack, in terms of having that relentless threat on that side of the pitch. And let's not forget, Rafinha can also do a job on the right-hand side. It can also allow Lamine to be rested as well. So I still think, ultimately, for this Barca team right now, another attacker is the priority for me. As much as the more sensible option might be looking at centre backs and full-backs, I think if you bring in an attacker, it can paper over a lot of cracks. Say for that example there, if we signed Nico Williams in January and Alejandro Balde got injured, I think we could recover from that because we can change the dynamics of the attack in that kind of sense. We kind of saw with Bayern under Hansi Flick, Benjamin Pavard, for example, was very much an inverted kind of fullback. He very rarely overlapped, and it worked pretty well on that side with Serge Gnabry, because Serge Gnabry could carry that right-hand side. And so there's different options for Barca, and I think the ultimate thing is how quickly we can get to one-to-one in terms of our overall competitiveness. And I think what I would say as well is that out of Lamine, Lewandowski, and Rafinha, I think we could still be competitive if we keep Lamine fit. As long as we keep Lamine fully fit and healthy, I think we can still find solutions if Lewandowski or Rafinha got an injury. It would obviously not be anywhere near as good, but in terms of the whole dynamics of the team, because listen, this Barca team creates a lot of chances. Say if it was Ferran Torres or Ansu Fati going in for Lewandowski, there would be nowhere near as good a player, by the way. Nowhere near as good a player as Lewandowski, but they would still get goals because of the volume of chances we create. If you took Lamine out of the team, I'm not sure we'd generate the same.
As much, can you?
If that makes sense, I wouldn't want any of them to get injured, but as long as it's not Lamine, I still think we can be competitive in that kind of sense. So I think it's that the priority has to be having that answer if we need to rest Lamine, if that makes sense. Kind of a long-winded way of saying it, but I think that is ultimately the priority for this team at this moment in time. I think in midfield, we've got good options. Of course, it might come to one point where we kind of ask the question, do we need that actual pure Busquets replacement that we've never actually got after 2 years? Do we actually genuinely need that? That might be a question for another day, and obviously the goalkeeping situation. But I think in January, maybe goalkeeper, but I think the star attacker is the one I look at and think, if you look at 2014-15, Suarez was basically out for pretty much the vast majority of the first half of the season because he did what he did in that World Cup. As soon as Suarez came in, it just gave the whole place a lift, and it kind of galvanised the Barca team in that kind of sense. And I just feel that if we can do something in January, I think I'd roll the dice. Obviously it had to be a player we're sure on, but I think I would roll the dice at this point because I think fundamentally we've got enough there. In terms of the way we're playing is amazingly well, but there's enough there to say, you know what, it'd be a risk making a signing in January, but this isn't making a Coutinho signing in January under Ernesto Valverde to try and make Barca look remotely good. This is actually just to be the icing on the cake kind of thing, to really kick Barca on and make the difference in the tight games. And so I don't think it would be that much of a risk if we can do it, but can we do it? That's the other question.
Yeah, I think that's the question. And you guys were talking about the attackers, and me too. And I think one question that's been coming up. So we're gonna be moving to the part where we did ask you guys on Twitter if you want to ask some questions to this part, and that's something that we obviously always like to do. If you guys have some questions, you can just drop them down on Instagram, on Twitter. We're gonna read them and talk about them in the podcast. So one question that's been coming up a few times about I hope I'm not gonna butcher his name like I did earlier, but Gyökeres, I think Gyökeres from Sporting.
That's
Sporting
a lot better
Lisbon.
than my pronunciation.
No, that's
I
pretty
hope
spot
so,
on. To be fair, he
We're
can
send
get
it
better
to him.
than that.
That is
than
spot
that
on.
in
I think
terms
that's
of
spot on.
pronunciation. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll send it to him and we'll see what he says. But either way, this guy has got 23 goals this season in all competitions, in 18 appearances, and 4 assists. And we're seeing some questions. I think the guys who asked this, Kanu asked this, and also Luane also asked about Gyökeres. And also they said with the Nike deal done, who should be our first big signing? And also I saw another question about the 1-1 with the Nike agreement. As we said, we're not sure if it's going to be 1-1 because I'm also seeing conflicting reports. That's the comment that I got. And we're all seeing conflicting reports. And I think even Barca, let's be honest, they probably don't know because these things, we have some paperwork going through La Liga, and then we'll see who stays and who leaves. So no one knows probably if we're going to have 1-1. But who do you think should be the first signing was the question. And he said, I think Gyökeres. I think Gyökeres could be amazing, but let's be honest, Europe is like all of Europe is rooting through Gyökeres. Like everyone wants him in their team. I don't think we're going to be able to sign him unless he says, listen, I don't care about the salary. I don't care about anything. I just want to go to Barcelona, which I don't know if he's a big Barca fan. But Ottavio, would you like to see this guy in your team? And like to answer his question, who should be the first big signing? Whatever we can do so. Either be January or the summer after it. I don't know. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, of course. I think everything always depends in terms of the fair play. At the end of the day, if you have the fair play and have the money, I think now with the Nike deal, Barca should have enough money to sign. I don't know of any player, but most of the players they we would like. I mean, Gyökeres, I think uh, it's more clear than water now that the guy I think is pretty good, and with the numbers he has had. Both in the Liga NOS, no, in the Portuguese league, but also in the Champions League, that I think is there where
with
you
a
prove
hat
your
trick right
level.
against Man City.
Exactly, I was going to mention that as well. Where you see like the proper level of the player, I think he has shown that he's pretty good. But I mean, man, if we can sign one player, one player, not one player only, but if you ask me my dream signing, I don't know, would be the first or would be whenever it would be. But if we had to sign like one key, what is the word? Marquee player. That is the word. No, like a proper star signing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for me, still would be Haaland, man. For me, Haaland's probably the most differential and most uh, top player that we can sign. I think he's the player. If you sign and you put him in the team, the level would go would go to the sky. Honestly, of course, as you guys have said, Leva has been very good this season. It has been probably top five players Barca this season, but we all know that his time at Barca is probably more close to ending than to beginning. So if I don't know, next summer, next two windows, you can find your replacement. I think that would be the dream. And if you allow me to choose and to pick any player, I would probably go with Steve Holland because I think he, together with Mbappe, even if Mbappe at the moment is not being at his best, I think they are probably the two best players that we have in the world right now, no, in terms of Europe, no. So if you want to be the best, you have to have the best, no. So I think I still would go with Haaland, man. I don't know how realistic would be. Of course, would depend on Man City and what they would ask and all that. But yeah, I think he would be the guy, man, for sure, for sure, for sure. But Gyoker is definitely a very good option as well. There in the list.
Yeah, I think they both are. It's probably not really realistic. Oscar, I'm gonna ask you about this as well. But first, I wanna mention a name that I don't think would come up in a Barca conversation. I don't know how realistic it is because it's gonna cost a lot. But I don't know what the situation is gonna be in the summer. Maybe he's not gonna be that happy, and he's gonna want to change clubs. Phil Foden actually is a player that I always loved him, and I think in Barca it could be so special. You know, and I see like the face that you guys have is exactly what I was expecting, and what I actually kind of had myself when I thought about this. Because you think of Barca, you don't think of Phil Foden. Because Oscar, you're gonna know that we don't normally have English players, right? Like we almost never. Now we have Bellingham in the La Liga, but also that's kind of rare. But that's a player that I'd like to have. I don't know if he's going to want to come, and I don't know if his Pep is going to let him go, like let Gundogan going to go, or Ferran Torres or Eric Garcia. But who is your player if we could make a big signing? It doesn't have to be, I don't know, Haaland, because we all want him. But any player that you'd like to sign.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I ultimately look at the way I look at it is, for me, the best team at this moment in time, in terms of who I'd back, say, for example, who I'd back to win the Champions League, if you were going to ask me who I think the best team in Europe is right now, I'd say Liverpool at this moment in time are the best team in Europe. Not just this season, I think over a long period of time, they've kind of been building up to it. I think part of it as well is Man City have dropped off. I don't think Liverpool, even though they've changed obviously manager and things like that, I don't think they've suddenly become so much better. But I just think they are the most consistent at this moment in time, these first 3 months. And what I look at Liverpool with, where I'm going with this, is that they have the option of Salah obviously plays every single game, no question about it. But if you go further along the forward line, it's Darwin Núñez or Diogo Jota, and it sort of depends on the form between the two. I don't think either's an outstanding centre forward or anything like that, but they can rotate between the two. And I look mostly at the left-hand side where you've got Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo, and both are having, I don't know how much English football you guys watch, both are having an unbelievable season, respectively, in terms of when they go in, they just perform brilliantly. And they almost play exactly half the minutes each kind of thing. They kind of like rotate the minutes perfectly between the two. And that's what I kind of think. And you look at Man City as well. You mentioned Phil Foden. Phil Foden rotates his minutes with Savio or Jeremy Doku or Jack Grealish, players like that. And that's what I think Barca do need to be aiming for. And I think Haaland definitely would be up there for me. 100% would be up there. But I look at Lewandowski. I think if we're talking about January or this summer, I think Lewandowski will still get another season out of it. Even if there is a big drop-off with Lewandowski, Dani Olmo, I've seen enough to say, can go in at false nine if there is a massive drop-off like last season from Lewandowski, because at his age, there's no real warning for it. It can just happen at a click of a button, unfortunately. Like Suarez, for example, it wasn't really much warning. It just kind of happened, until it just totally fell off a cliff physically. And that could easily happen for Lewandowski, but it's definitely Haaland. If you offer me Haaland tomorrow, I'd say yes, no question about it. But for me, it's at left-hand side. And there's a couple of names. Leao, I think, is one that comes to mind. I think last couple of weeks, again, of course, form is one thing, but I think over a long period of time, he's been threatening to be a really, really top player. But I think you're really seeing that form the last few weeks really pick up. I think his performance against Real Madrid was exceptional. Okay, he was against Lucas Vazquez, but he caused so many problems in that game. Nico Williams is a contender, but I'm not sure I'd have him as high. He'd probably be sort of my fourth or fifth choice now, to be honest. And to actually look at people like Luis Diaz, in terms of Luis Diaz has flirted with Barcelona for quite a while now, for kind of like 2 years or so, where he hadn't really settled in at Liverpool. But I'd still say, and Kvaratskhelia as well is someone I've been a big fan of for a long, long time. I think he's been far too good for Napoli for quite a while, to be honest, and maybe that's not the most popular thing to say. He's the most Eden Hazard-like player I think I've seen since Eden Hazard, to be honest. But yeah, I think overall, right now, I would go for Leao. I think I would go for Leao. I think the biggest factor is how motivated he clearly is to play for Barcelona. He's dropped the hints a few times. His idol was Ronaldinho, modelled his game on Neymar. We've kind of heard this story before. And I think it would work really well. I really do. And I think it allows, if there is a drop-off in Lewandowski, it allows Lamine or Dani Olmo to go in at false nine, and then Rafinha to the right and Leao to the left. And it's kind of seamless in that kind of sense. And it gives us another option. Another name, two other names I'm just going to throw out there, but that I don't think we need so much now because we've signed Dani Olmo. But I always dreamed of Jamal Musiala playing for Barca and Florian Wirtz, one of the two, again, because they're basically Barca fans. They kind of admitted it in every single interview, and I think they're phenomenal footballers. And it would be sad of me if they don't sign for Barca, but I don't think they will. I think it will go elsewhere. I think they will be going to a Man City or somewhere else, or maybe even a Bayern Munich, in Florian Wirtz's case. And I think that's a shame, but I think in terms of what we need, I think we need that pace and power, that speed, and just that natural left winger, I think is what we ultimately need in terms of Leao, and I think that really does take us to the next level. But yeah, you can even look at goalkeeper as well. You can even look at goalkeeper and say that's as important. And you look at people like, say, Emiliano Martinez. I look at someone like that and think, in a Champions League game, in a knockout game, I can't think of a goalkeeper I want in my team more than Emiliano Martinez, in terms of how much he steps up in those big games, how much he'd suit the Barca, not in terms of so much in terms of playing style, but just the Barca way, in terms of playing the high line and knowing he's going to have quite a lot of shots to save, and he kind of relishes that. But, in terms of Mamardashvili, unfortunately, has already gone to Liverpool. That one can't happen, but I think in Martinez, he's still at a very good age as well. I don't think he's 30 yet either. That would be someone else I'd look at as well. But I think Leao was the one that kind of wows me the most at this moment in time. But Phil Foden, definitely up there. And listen, if we can get Phil Foden, I think absolutely buzzing. But I don't think Phil Foden would leave City. I think because he's a City fan, it'd be, I don't know, who knows? I didn't think Trent Alexander-Arnold would leave Liverpool, but it looks like he will, to go to Real Madrid by the sounds of things. So let's see. But yeah, Phil Foden's definitely one to look at. If Pep could do us one last favour, but we did give him a washed Gundogan, so I don't think maybe we'll be too high on.
I don't think they're too happy, with Barca.
I don't think it'll be too high on Pep's Christmas card list at this moment in time.
It's actually related to the next question as well, because we're talking about Leao and Wirtz and Musiala. Actually, we got a question specifically about Musiala, but I saw that Spas was asking, and also a few other questions about the wingers. So the question was, do you think the club should sign a quality winger that can give the needed rotation to Rafinha and Lamine in order to avoid injuries? So the short answer is yes. Like we were talking about earlier,
Yeah,
right? Like
what
we do
what
need
we talked
rotation.
about.
These guys can get injured. So my answer is yeah. I think we should sign a quality winger. Do we have the money to do that? I'm not sure, but I think we've kind of answered that earlier. But I just wanted to
Rafa Leao
to
will take
answer.
will take a Spotify premium deal. I'm convinced of it. 50%.
I
He will
hopefully,
take that
man.
deal.
You think is that much of a culé? You think he's a
He is.
Barca
He
fan?
is. If he really wants to prove that, then there we go. He can sacrifice the wages for a
Yeah,
Spotify premium deal. We'll see how committed he is then.
yeah. Hopefully.
That is a joke, by
Uh,
the way. Before anyone clips this up, that is a joke, by the way. I'll
oh, it's
emphasize.
a joke. No, I'm actually going for this. It's just I think
Yeah, I thought it
Laporta.
was true as well.
Seeing what Laporta does, I think he can actually get to a meeting and say, "You've got Spotify Premium," because it's been like the situation in the club. We don't have much more, but man, Spotify Premium is good. I don't know where you guys are hearing this podcast, but you should try. So the next question was by Sporting Eclectic. Should we still be patient on Ansu Fati, or has that ship sailed a long time ago? And I think we talked about it like 2 episodes ago. And my opinion stays the same. I love Ansu Fati. I have a shirt of him with the number 10 on it, but I don't think that he's ever going to come back to this level because of injuries, because of mentality. Like I'm not I'm not in his head, but it seems like Ansu Fati is not confident. Maybe it's a physical thing because he's feeling something in his knee. I don't know, but I don't think he's ever going to come back to the level that he was at, because this level was, let's not forget, I think it was October of 2021-2022 season. I think it was that, or maybe one season before that, he was the top scorer of the league when Messi was there. Obviously, it was just a few, I don't know, like 6 matches in. But Ansu Fati was at a great level. I don't personally think he's going to get back to it. But Otavio, what's your take on this? Do you think like he's ever going to get back to the level he was at, or maybe even close?
Oh, well, having within the squad, you always will have the belief and the hope that he can, because at the end of the day he's at the club, and you always will want the players to perform the best, man. But if we are realistic and seeing how he's now and how he was at Brighton, or more how he's not, I think that is more the right way to put it. I think it's going to be difficult, man, because as you said, I think I don't know, man, if mentally, physically, he's like not at the same at the same level, and like the same line of the rest of the team, and whenever he's on the pitch, you can feel, man, you can feel that no, he doesn't have the same confidence to go 1v1s, to try different plays. Looks like he's not connected with himself, and neither with the team enough to be performing at his level, man. So if we are completely honest, think, I don't know, man. Of course, it always depends if there's clubs interested or not in the players, no. But I think there is a quite good chance, man, that this might be his last season, man. I think probably him or Ferran, or maybe even both, but probably one of the two, no, probably will be their last season at Barca, because at the moment it's complicated to see then at the long term in the club.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And Oscar, let's see what you're thinking as well. Do you think Ansu Fati can ever get back to what we thought Ansu Fati was?
I think the answer about 3 weeks ago to this question was, I thought there was a chance. I don't think ever getting back to his 2019-2020 level, but I did think he'd get to a level where he'd be a useful backup option. But I think my belief is kind of like dropping quite a lot, to be honest, the last couple of weeks. I think especially last night, in terms of even when Ansu wasn't playing so well, in terms of if we go to pre-Brighton, that move, he was still getting goals. He might still have been able to get on the end of a cross or make a difference in the game. And ultimately, the team performance wasn't good. We can't just use Ansu as a scapegoat in that kind of sense. But I don't know. I think when everyone else has played so badly, you kind of thought that's an opportunity for Ansu to kind of, if he plays decent, at least then he'll be able to say he's had a better game than Rafinha or a better game than Olmo. And he still can't say that. Even though it was probably Rafinha and Olmo's poorest games of the season, Ansu still wasn't better. That is a big, big worry to me. And I still believe he should get more of an opportunity than Varane when both are on the pit, both are fit to play. I do think it's more worthwhile persisting with Ansu than it is Varane, to be honest. But there's not a lot in it, really. I think ultimately, we're not seeing enough from Ansu, really, if we're being totally honest. But I still think, we look at the January window, he's still got 6 or 7 weeks to kind of show something. Now, obviously, Hansi Flick has tried in terms of in the media to really praise Ansu Fati, and obviously that injury was a nightmare in terms of the timing of it, in terms of early August, and it does sadden me a lot, and I think it saddens all of us, really. I don't think there's a Barca fan in the world who won't be saddened that Ansu doesn't look like he's going to be able to recreate the magic of 2019, 2020. But we're going to say 2019, 2020. We've got to realise that's 5-6 years ago in a couple of months. As much as it hurts to say it, we can't just. The problem with Barca is we have been very sentimental for a long time. I look at maybe, for example, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Ter Stegen. These players that we say, we should have got rid of them ages ago. Any serious board would do that. So we can't really say all that and then say, well, we've got to be persist with Ansu, if you know what I mean. It can't be one rule for one and one rule for the other. So I think ultimately, I wouldn't look to actively sell Ansu, but I do think the patience is wearing thin. And ultimately, if he does stay, sort of beyond January or this summer, he's going to be 4th, 5th choice kind of thing. He's not going to be coming off the bench that often. If we did get, say, a Nico Williams or a Leao or someone, or a Luis Diaz or someone of that ilk in the front line, that would be a nightmare for Ansu. And I think ultimately he's kind of had that. I think I said a couple of weeks ago, he had the stay of execution because Nico Williams didn't sign. He hasn't really took advantage of that enough, really, to in terms of to really say that if Ansu was sold in January, I don't think he could have too many complaints. I know it'd be upsetting, but there's not really too many complaints there from Ansu, I don't think.
Yeah, I think he knows now that the time has come. That he's had his chances, and maybe it's never gonna happen. But we hope he does. Like you said, like every Barca fan is hoping that Ansu Fati is gonna get back to what we used to think he was. But we'll see. And the last question actually that we had was about 2 Barca athletic players, and we are not the academy specialist in this media outlet. We've got Arsene, right, who is without a doubt is the number 1 source for Barca's academy. So Arsene, what's your take on these 2 young lads?
Hi everyone. Thank you for your question, Barca season, which is, do you think that Oduro and Issa have the potential to make it into the first team? So both Oduro and Issa arrived in the summer. Oduro arrived on a permanent deal with a contract until 2027, while with Issa he arrived only on loan, but the club has an option to buy. So if he impresses enough, he might stay in the future with the club. Regarding their potential, they significantly, I would say, have impressed on their debuts. But we need a bit more to see how they will adapt to that Barcelona DNA style of play, playing with possession and so on. They also trained with the first team in a few occasions, so Hansi Flick saw them personally. But I would say the potential is definitely there, but it will always depend on their adaptation here, because I think they only speak English, so adapting that.
So yeah, thank you, Arsene. So hopefully these 2 guys do make their way and obviously find a way to get into the first team, because that's what we always want, right? Like in La Masia, the produce of the players that we're seeing is incredible, and hopefully we're gonna keep doing like this, because I think that's one of the biggest differences between Barca of these times and Real Madrid, right? Like obviously we don't have money, so we can't do the same thing these guys are doing, but they're getting the likes of Bellingham, Tchouaméni, Mbappe now, right? And we're just getting Marc Asado, Paul Cubarsí, and all these players, which is absolutely amazing. So I think that's going to be all for today. We've had a nice 1 yeah, 1 hour 15 minutes, no bad at all. So I want to thank you, Oscar. Thank you so much for coming to this podcast, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one as well. When we're gonna, I hope we're gonna win against Celta Vigo.
Hopefully, mate. Hopefully. I'll just throw in one more player who I'd say I wouldn't mind just
Yeah, go
looking
ahead.
at. One more player. And I felt this for a long time. Alexander Isak is someone I do really like. I
That's a
think
good shout.
the reason I wouldn't say
like
be
it a
my
lot.
absolute first choice for any position specifically. I'd say there is other strikers I'd look at ahead of Alexander Isak. It's the fact he's so comfortable on that left-hand side as well. And it is almost, yes, it wouldn't be a direct replacement for Lamine or Rafinha, but you'd also almost be able to say, okay, you can kind of rest Lamine or Rafinha and play Alexander Isak from the left, or you can rest Lewandowski and play him up top. That's what was really appealed to me about Alexander Isak. But whether that could happen or not, who knows? But if Newcastle don't make top four this season, that could be. I don't think he'll be staying around at Tyneside for much longer. To be honest, I think he's far too good for that. I think he's a Champions League footballer. So let's see. But anyway, enough of the dreams that are going to get shattered by us not making 1-1. It's probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen in January. I've kind of made peace with that. It's just
I doubt it.
wishful thinking.
I doubt it's gonna happen.
It's wishful thinking, unless Juan Laporta can just produce a masterclass in terms of the finances to make something happen in January. It's probably not going to happen. So let's see. But guys, it's going to be a long 2 weeks, isn't it, until the next game? It is horrible when you come off an international break off the back of a defeat and an underwhelming performance. All you want is just to be able to play on this Tuesday or Wednesday and just to really come back from it straight away. I think that was the difference to the Osasuna game, was the fact that we were able to play straight away. I think it was Young Boys we played, and then Deportivo Alaves. We scored 8 without reply because we were able to hit back straight away. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, that's going to really annoy the players a little bit, really kick at the players, and we're going to come back on fire away at Celta Vigo. Let's see.
Hopefully. So that's going to be Saturday, November 23. So that's a long time from now. That's 12 days in which we're going to be, many Barça rumors, right? And maybe it's not the best that we lost the last game, because now we've got 2 weeks of thinking, how did we lose this, man?
What do we think is going to be the
either
craziest rumour, just to finish with? What do we reckon is going to be the craziest rumour in these next 2 weeks?
At this club, you never know. I think it can be something like Hansi Flick got an offer from Brazil and he's leaving. At this club, anything is possible. Messi is going to be the next manager. We never know. But I think it's going to be with players, right? Like in every international break, we see, I don't know, Gyökeres. Now it's going to be because he just scored the hat trick. Haaland is not happy in City. All these reports, but I think the recommendation, lads, would be just, if you want to get some reliable stuff, just go to Barça Buzz and don't listen to the others, because you're just gonna get too many news. And but either way, thank you so much, Otavio, for coming in, and hopefully we're gonna see you in 2 weeks when we win against Celta Vigo, or when we lose. We want to see you either way. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, man. Thank you also for Oscar and everyone that tune in and watch the pod, of course, and for sure, man. We're gonna be here, man. Winning or losing, drawing, we have to be, because at the end of the day is that the commitment, with Barca and with the Barça Bus community as well, no. But thank you, man. Thank you for having me on, and pleasure as always, man.
Totally, and thank you guys for listening, wherever you get your podcasts, but whether it be Spotify, YouTube. So make sure, if you're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, or on your Spotify, give us a nice rating on Apple Podcasts, wherever it may be. And if you want to ask any questions for the next podcast in any of the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, we're good to go. We're going to read your questions like we just did in this podcast. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you again, Oscar, for Otavio, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Visca el Barça!